Welcome to another sedition of the Indignants for October 25th, 2021. Today we talk about Trump's new social media network, the cost of living is going up, but our wages aren't, Amazon workers unionizing, Striketober, and some stuff you probably not heard about. So, I'm Mike. How you doing?
Hi, I'm Eric.
And I'm Matt, and this is Romper Room.
Okay.
But yeah,
And Bailey's not with us tonight, but she might be with us next week.
So welcome to another fantastic episode of The Indignants.
So it's been a crazy week.
Sure
And
has.
Yeah.
Well, they're
So
all
we got-
crazy weeks from now on.
Yeah. So are things getting better or are things getting worse? What do you think, guys?
Things are getting more things.
Hey, we can now congregate in groups of as many as we want, apparently. So that's a thing. The vaccinated have, the ability to go to nightclubs again and party amongst the hordes. So
I sat in a crowded coffee shop today. It was kind of nice.
Wow.
yeah.
But
yeah,
what about the True Bloods? What are the True Bloods going to be doing, though?
Apparently, they're going to be flying to Ontario and getting tubes put down their throat. So,
I
Seems
hate to
like-
make light of somebody else's peril, but you kind of bring it on yourself. If you could get vaccinated, don't, and then end up with a tube down your throat.
if somebody tells me not to walk on broken glass and then I walk on broken glass and my feet get cut, yep.
Yeah,
What were you
but
expecting?
freedom.
Yes, freedom. That's it.
Yep.
Freedom.
Freedom.
So-
Yeah.
A lot of stuff's been happening this week. I don't even know where to start, but how about with a lot of labor movements starting to sort of percolate?
Yeah. Yeah.
It's happening a lot.
Apparently, it's now being referred to because of the number of people. I should probably lock my chair in place so I'm just not so lackadaisically, rocking back and forth like a good union employee on his work job. It's just, but the moniker is now Striketober because of the number of
Hashtag
organizations you have in a strike position or actively on strike. So,
Catchy.
yeah, exactly. I kind of like it. I hope it becomes a regular thing for Striketober. But I'm more of a Strike July sort of guy. But,
right. Why do
but-
all these things happen when it gets cold out? Eric, why?
I don't know. On the
Like
upside, when
Occupy.
Occupy happened, it
Quebec
was a
student
really
movement.
nice October, but
Yeah.
it's hard to really build momentum if there's that looming
Global
old man
warming was in
winter
our
the
favor that
distance,
winter, yeah.
suppose, yeah.
So apparently 2,000 hospital workers went on strike in Buffalo.
Yes,
Correct,
and
Mike?
yeah, this is an interesting one as well too, because there's like 3 main hospitals in Buffalo apparently, and the other 2 hospitals signed a non-strike agreement in their last collective bargaining agreement. So this hospital is the only one that's able to walk out and actually form picket lines, and they're basically negotiating for all 3 at the moment.
Okay.
So, and it's you also have what's her name? She's vying to be the mayor of Buffalo right now. I want to say India. Let me check this right now. Somebody can pipe in if they know what it is. Mayor Buffalo. What's her name? India Walton. She's running for mayor.
and
Joe Waltons?
No.
Okay.
This is
Just making sure.
a large black socialist who's going to make a big difference in
Anti-Walton.
Buffalo should she get elected. She's got a wicked presence, but once again, you have the Democratic Party that is basically out against her and has allowed, for some strange reason, the former Democratic mayor to select himself as a write-in candidate. So it's a mess. But that's aside from the strike that's taking place. So you have 2,000 hospital workers that have walked out of this hospital on strike. Now, yeah, they're still. It's basically when a hospital goes on strike, they still do work to rule. It's not like it's not like
They're
they
not
just
gonna let
walked
people die.
out and left grandma with the COVID intubation tube.
You got an article for that at all? I don't know. Should
Yeah.
we be sharing some screen time with some of these things we're talking about?
Yeah, we
We
can
can show our
actually,
references.
I believe Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez was actually on site in Buffalo. So let me see if I can
Somebody was
find.
chatting there. I'm not sure who was there. No, it was nobody.
Let me see what I can find us here.
It has some parallels to what's also going on in Ontario. Uh, I can't recall actually off the top of my head exactly what is going on, but there is something happening semi-locally. Well, there is, of course, the Optometrists Association of Ontario. They have withdrawn support for providing optical care to those on assistance as a result of inaction on getting them a better contract from the Ontario government, basically inaction of the Ontario government in uh, actually negotiating. And so that's trouble for a great number of people who could use that optical care, because that is indeed a form of healthcare that is kind of underserviced, under supported.
So yeah, we had the 2,000 folks in Boston. Was it Boston? Buffalo, in Buffalo, the
Yep.
hospital workers. Amazon workers are starting to unionize.
Yes, well,
Right.
Amazon's a big union drive because it's the largest, it's the largest industrial machine in the world right now, Amazon. So like it needs to be unionized. Like if you can unionize Amazon, you can change the globe right now. Like this is
Yep. Well, they're
and
rapidly becoming a monopoly of consumer goods distribution in general. So for that to be a non-democratic worker organization,
Is there article? Yeah, there you go. Pop that puppy up.
so yeah, Amazon is the Teamsters are trying to unionize 8 Amazon warehouses right now. And big props to them because we hope they pull it off. And this is the thing. As you guys know, I recently unionized my workplace. Every
Yeah, which
workplace.
is really incredible, by the way. So I congratulate you on that. I was amazed when you told me that you were part of starting a union at your workplace, and it
Yeah,
was
well, and
successful.
everybody should, right? Like this was the thing. When everybody like you're all at work and everybody's bitching about their jobs and everybody's going, "Well, how can what do we do? Why are they assholes? Why do they treat us like this?" And it's like there's only one answer to that question. Your boss would love it if you just quit and fucked off and got a new job. You don't like your boss, quit your job, fuck off, get a new job, right?
Maybe
Fixes
not so
everybody's
much in
problem.
today's day and age, but yeah, in
But it
general, for
doesn't
sure. Yeah.
change the working conditions whatsoever, and your boss wins, right? Like this is
Yep.
literally, I hate to say it, it is worker versus the bosses in society because your boss wants to give you as little as possible so he can buy a new trailer, a new boat, new car, um, new fucking hedge fund, depending on the scale of his fucking skills or whatever, right? But no, like rather than quitting your job, organize.
So it says here, unions say that 40% of workers have already signed union cards. What else is it saying here?
Yeah, so the Teamsters has launched campaigns to organize. So 40% of the workers have agreed to sign union cards. That means basically 40% have said we're willing to join the union. So now it has to go to a vote where within the workplace, and unfortunately Amazon won't because they run everything as separate corporations, I'm sure, every warehouse will probably be considered a separate entity. You won't just be able to unionize all Amazon warehouses, but they fear
and of course,
once one's in the door, the first Amazon warehouse that unionizes, you'll see it probably get shut down. They
of course, yes.
all of a
So
sudden there'll
two of
be
the
a
unions,
COVID outbreak. It'll shut down for 3 weeks, and then they'll decide
right?
they're never reopening the
Yeah.
facility.
So
Surprise.
two of the union units in Ontario and one in Alberta have confirmed they are signing membership cards with Amazon workers.
Yep.
I'm just down a little lower. Scroll down a little bit there.
Of course, even if this does succeed, even if widespread there is an adoption of unions at warehouses, that's not
Jim
going
Kelly.
to solve the problem. The Amazon also implies a great number of people who are not employed in their warehouses, and also certainly not employed by Amazon itself. As you
Well,
mentioned,
that's
it being a
exactly
different
it, right?
corporation.
Like this is how they dance around it, and when When software companies were starting to face unionization, they started using temp organizations instead, right? So, congratulations, you work at Microsoft as a temporary employee for 5 years with none of the benefits of being a Microsoft employee, right? It's
Mm-hmm.
so yeah, like
And
this
of
is
course, all of the contractors, all of the delivery people who don't work for Amazon, don't work for anything even related to Amazon, that are basically just independent contractors that still have no rights. And like that is the toughest nut to crack in terms of labor in this age, that we're all transitioning to being entrepreneurs. I hate that word.
oh
That have no workplace supports at all. What really would be needed there would be like an open guild that all people who do that kind of work can join and collectively bargain that way. But that's really hard to organize because everyone is designated and designed as a entrepreneur.
well, that's
Everyone is
exactly it. It's
independent.
the at will employee, right? Like you are there basically running yourself as a little business under contract to your employer, but the contract is at your discretion and you can tear it up anytime and walk out the door. You don't like it, you
And
can
if you
leave.
do, you won't work in this town ever again.
Oh, exactly.
Scroll down a little more on this puppy. Let's see if there's anything else they're adding.
Yeah, like it's you driving a union in a large organization is like I fortunate enough I work in a relatively smaller organization, so it was relatively easy to speak with all the employees. But when you're dealing with like an Amazon warehouse, which probably employs what, 3,000 people,
Mm-hmm.
like
Cavernous place where you
yes,
can't stand still or you get fired.
yep, and the propaganda is huge, huge, right? Like in the States, they employed like they literally changed the traffic light timing outside the warehouse so that employees wouldn't have time to stop and talk to the cars as they were leaving at a red light at shift
What?
Wow.
change.
Wow.
Yeah, like this is
Pulling out all the stops.
yeah, like these are the anti-union tactics. These are the tactics that your boss will go through so that he can,
Okay,
if he had his
that's
way, burn
freaking
you up in a
reaching,
sweat
man.
factory.
Holy, that is reaching. That is crazy.
Well, they'll do whatever they can, right? Because they know that unions don't impact the bottom line, right? They don't impact the bottom line, but they certainly do fucking impact the dividends.
Yeah.
Which they would say is the bottom line.
Well, of course,
Right.
like this is, and we're just doing everything we can to protect our shareholders. And it's like, you know what? There was a time where your shareholders were your fucking employees, you jackasses.
Well,
Or even
basically,
for that matter, sometimes like the shareholders are the people that own the company. But at this point, it's not even that really. Oftentimes it's hedge funds, people that don't even
right. How
have
many
any
shares do you
interest in the
guys have?
company at
How many
all.
shares do you guys have?
I think I
None.
have, funny you mentioned this because I actually decided, I'm like, okay, I'm just going to see what the market is capable of in the 21st century. I got one of those digital apps and I threw
Mm,
like $350 into it. I'm at
mm.
$250 now.
Good job.
Why? I
Well
don't
done.
know. Those companies are
I don't
still
know.
in existence. Like that's
But they're
yeah.
not maximizing
But
shareholder
like
profit.
we don't have stocks. We don't have shares. I don't have dividends. I don't
I
have,
don't know. Yeah,
I'm not a
no,
hedge.
it's
I'm not hedging anything. Like I'd say 80% of us don't have access to that. Well, we have access to that market, but we don't have any extra funds. We have no extra means to buy anything.
Well, and we
I
also
s-
don't have the advantage of high-speed trading or insider information or any of the other things that makes this whole financial industry
the
work.
AI that's patented by like BlackRock Inc. that just calculates trades at the 10 millionth of a second, right?
right,
Like
Yeah,
right,
the
and then
high-speed
yeah,
connect
right. So
necessitate that.
I think that's a good segue over to cost of living and what's going on with that. Because I mean, why else are these people starting to become more and more vocal? I think it's starting to hurt more and more people. People are starting to notice, and they're also noticing that they can actually stand up. Right, like a lot of these companies are hurting for employees and stuff. So this is a good time to wield the axe, start bargaining.
Well, they're ostensibly hurting for employees. I've heard some subjective experiences that although there's all these help wanted signs out there, that not actually that much of a demand for labor, that
Mm.
it's kind of a phantom thing. And there's some speculation that this whole worker shortage narrative is actually a way to manufacture support for a tightening of capitalist ideology.
Austerity.
But
Welcome to
yeah,
austerity, right? Like this is,
the, hmm.
yeah. It's
Yeah, like supposing for a moment that the worker shortage is indeed real, we're in a situation where you should be able to just fall out your front door and get yourself a job, and you should be able to dictate terms if it is indeed a real labor shortage, because if there is no labor, no value can be created. Ergo, the person that is producing value should be willing to pay any price basically to get the labor necessary to produce value, but that's not really happening. And so the question is like, why are there not more substantive gains occurring already? And if not, then what else can be done? What can be done to improve the traction that this is offering us?
Burn, paywall.
Hmm?
Where were you reading this? So there's I heard of talk of an illusion of a
Oh,
worker
yes.
shortage. Do you have a link for
Yeah.
that?
yeah, there's several of them, right? Like this is
Right,
all
I've heard this.
the force well, first off, we're forcing people back to work now, right? Like the pandemic's over, everybody's got to go back to work.
Right,
And
which I want to touch on for a quick sec, because a lot of right wingers have been going off about how everybody's on the dole, so they're not wanting to work. Now you're going to see this all fill up. They're still supposedly having shortages in the States right now, and for the last couple months they haven't had any support. So if that's the case, then I would say that there's still going to be an ongoing problem.
well, I think this is the pandemic has really, I think, highlighted for a lot of people the non-essentialness of certain roles in society. Like somebody realizes that if you're going to pay me to flip burgers for jackasses all day, then I deserve to maybe be paid a living wage with equitable benefits and treated with respect, motherfuckers.
You don't
Like,
say.
you
So
know,
myth of the myth of the unskilled worker, which is just there to reinforce class boundaries. It's like there's no such thing as an unskilled worker. Everybody
no,
needs skill
no.
to do
Does
their
anybody
work, and
think any less of the mom and pop burger shop guys than they do the McDonald's guy flipping patties? Like,
everybody's doing the same basic job.
yeah.
And oftentimes those unskilled jobs are much harder work than skilled
Mm-hmm.
jobs. Not
Mm-hmm.
just like, yes, you may need a bunch of education to be, say, an engineer, but if you're working picking berries in a field, you're going to be working a lot harder than an engineer any day of the week. So why are we not paying the people that are working much harder more money?
Well,
So
that's
what's
and
this article saying?
oh,
Oh, you're
these.
going to go to another one. Yeah, I want to see one that's sort of like something. I haven't seen
Oh,
anything
look at
on
that
this,
tiny little font for you, eh?
right? So I gather just by the title, this one's saying that there's just an
Oh,
employer.
everybody's whining that there, and you know what? I'm not going to lie. There is a skill shortage. There is a definite skill shortage in the
Oh,
market.
we're
And
we're short like thousands of truck drivers in this province too. England just imported from other countries 20,000 workers.
well, maybe there wouldn't be a shortage of, 20,000 truck drivers if we weren't buying fucking thousands of, like, if Dollarama was not $1 billion company, right? Like, like the truck driver shortage is a mess of our own making, unfortunately,
Yeah.
I think, right? Like,
There's just too much stuff that moves around, too much consumer goods that need to be consumed in order for the economy to work properly.
yeah, like,
Ergo,
and
these trucks
we're
must roll.
so many of our topics tonight are interconnected because now
I
we're
know.
talking about shipping container
I know.
I
costs.
know.
Oh yeah.
Like it
Yeah.
is so, and this is a funny thing, folks. We started making a list up of topics today, but they all bled right into each other so much.
How
And
much
we
how
knew.
much of Amazon is responsible for the backlog in shipping right now, right?
Can you put up that little post I put from, like, I got it from like a work source. The I put it in the Discord channel.
Yep.
It's the it's the shipping container cost.
Yes, absolutely. That I can do. 1 second here. The problem is, there we go.
And this is a year old, by the way, folks. This
Oh, wait,
go down
hold
here.
on. That I can't. I can pull this one up. That one's not a link. It's an image. I have to.
Okay.
So
So
this,
basically, shipping container costs have gone from, in 2020. This is off the top of my head from reading that from
this is
my
the
work,
price right here.
right? And from my work, it's gone $2,000 to have a shipping container, to $28,000,
Wow.
and that's in the course of a year.
Phew.
So, and that graph pretty much says it there too.
Wow.
Yeah, it's sheer
They're saying
volume of
5,
goods.
but
It's sheer volume
yeah.
of goods. Goods are up 16% over where they were last year.
And part of
And
the problem, go ahead.
and now they've oh, I don't want to click the wrong button. Now they've gone and panicked. Like, everybody's got panic. Christmas is coming and you might not be able to get your toys. And so now people are panic buying again, right? Getting all their
Yeah.
orders in now.
Yeah.
That old nugget.
So a lot of this has to do, like, everybody's blaming, say, Biden or this or that or whatnot.
I thought it was
A lot
Brandon.
of
I thought they were blaming Brandon. I thought the guy's name was Brandon.
but I mean, this started before even COVID started. This started with I might have started during COVID too. I'm not sure, but it started with Trump's trade war with China. Was that prior to COVID?
Just Trump's been having a trade war with China since he came to
Yeah,
office because they were
but
trying to
He's been
restrict his
trying to
hotel
produce one at
licensing or
least.
something.
so from these companies that we receive goods at work from, what they've been saying is that a lot of shipping containers have been coming over here from Asia, and none are leaving, so they're stockpiling up here. And the folks from Asia are that used to buy even more stuff from us are tending to buy from other places right now. So we're not sending a lot of stuff over there. We're not sending our junk over there anymore. I remember we used to send our plastics and our electronic waste and stuff like that. We're definitely not sending that anymore. So those containers aren't getting over there, and that raises the price of the containers from over there to send back over here.
Typical
So
manifestation of trade deficit.
yeah, it's pretty messed up. That's just one part of it too. And then there's the cost of energy that's happening right now. China's going through an energy crunch, and Europe's starting to too, right? So, price of oil is going up, price of coal
And
is going
winter
up.
is coming, and people forget, like, the price of oil. Everybody, like, during the summer, it's like, yeah, gas is expensive. And then you realize that most of the northern United States heat their homes with oil and gas, right? Like, things are going to get interesting if those prices don't drop. Remember, does anybody remember back in, I think it was it 2006 when Hugo Chavez showed up off of Chicago with, like, free oil?
Yeah.
That's,
Yeah.
I
yeah.
don't remember
Yeah.
that bit.
Yeah.
Yeah, he did that. He did a little while. He paid or he gave or paid for the oil for a lot of poor communities in the United States.
Hmm.
Ironic. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
So,
one of those unknown little,
destabilized his country, tried to assassinate him multiple times. The usual. Socialism. Hey.
It's socialism's fault. Yeah, sure.
So, and then the other thing I'm noticing at work is everything's going up in price. Like, and I'm not just talking a couple bucks. Like, I've seen a lot of things doubling in price. I've seen people having to wait till after Christmas to get things. So, I
And
think
for that
we're
matter, like
just,
staples, groceries have just skyrocketed in terms of costs. The cereal that I used to buy for $3 is now $5
wow,
consistently, and it's not
wow,
gone down. So I've just stopped buying cereal now and making myself some
I just eat
oatmeal.
the
This is
stuffing out
better
of
for
my
me.
couch.
right,
Just make some stone
right.
soup and away you go.
Oh my God!
I
Scroll
have
down
not
a bit.
heard
Is that
somebody mention stone soup in a while.
Is that who I think it is down there in that video? Oh my God, it is. It's what's his face.
Yep.
Bottom
Oh,
left.
let's see what. Is this a link? Let's see what these guys.
Do you fall into that camp for hyperinflation?
You turn it up.
Hyperinflation is a strong, hyperbole, and it gets people all worked up. Look, we're definitely in the inflation camp. I mean, as you remember, Joe, over a year ago, we were talking about inflation before it was fashionable, and we're now seeing that, right? The market's digested.
Is it stagflation?
The stagflation is another hyperbole people like to latch onto. Look, we're in a reflationary world after
A reflationary. How many times can we?
That's a different investment environment. Okay, and so you need to have things that are levered to higher rates, higher inflation, like financials, like I just talked about a minute ago, like some of the commodity sectors which have done well here. But doesn't mean you can't. You have to abandon growth stocks. You have to abandon stocks altogether. It just means you have to be much more attendant to valuation, which we're trying to do within our portfolio construction. So, the bottom line is we have inflation. It's here to stay. We think it's going to be more persistent. We're buyers of the inflation dip if we ever get one, which we think could come in the first quarter of next year as demand slows down and maybe supply catches up to where, demand has been. And that's something to kind of think about. It's also going to be a much more volatile economic outcome than we've enjoyed for probably 20 years because of that inflationary impulse. Hyperinflation, that's not something we're propagating right now at all. It's more just that we're going from a disinflationary world to a more inflationary world that's more persistent, and that has implications for asset prices across the board.
Mike, do you ever think we'll have a secular bear market again? And if we were going to look for a reason,
does anybody know what
might
language they are speaking?
You would think that multi-decade lows in interest rates, that the lows are probably in now, so that's headed up. Reflation after decades of no inflation, now that's headed up. Would you ever make that forecast that there's going to be a multi-year
stagflation?
Sort of not a great time to be in the stock market? Is that now, or we're never going to have a secular bear market again?
That's a great question, Joe. I'm glad you asked it. We do not think we're entering a secular bear market yet. Will we have another one? Of course. What's the timetable on that? I mean, your guess is as good as mine, but we try to do that, as part of our job. I would gather it's probably middle part of this decade. As this expansion runs out of gas.
Let's see if we can find.
My guess is, it's going to be tougher over the last 20 years. If technological development recession, it's more in the world.
They just used them for marketing purposes.
Because the last year when
they baited us in.
We don't get Mr. Shark Tank himself.
So Jack Dempsey. So that was the thing that I was reading today on Twitter. So.
Yeah, so Jack Dempsey was saying that hyperinflation is here. So this being a guy that's heavily invested in crypto as well, right? So billionaires aren't too worried about inflation anyways, right? No. This does not impact a man like Jack Dorsey because the price of meat has gone up 13%. But can anyone kind of explain to me the concept of inflation? Because I've been trying to understand it most of my life, and I know it's based around the consumer price index of goods.
Google it.
Yeah. So you've got the consumer price index of goods, which is like a list of like 200 items, including gas and heating fuel and all that sort of stuff. Like I do have an understanding of it, but I just don't understand how they get the magic numbers they come up with when the magic numbers are controlled. Like, for example, they're saying the price of meat has gone up 13% this year.
Right. So it's gone up from like $2 to $2.50 or $3.
Yes.
Right? So
that's
the percentage they get. Right. That's the percentage they get.
Yeah. Over all types of meat. Right. Like you go T-bone steaks are now like $18. So like this is insane. But the producers
and our wages
are not getting an inflated price on their stock. So the profits are going to the middlemen. So the inflationary prices are going to the middlemen, not the economy as a whole, right? Like my thoughts on inflation is when inflation goes up, everything kind of goes up.
Well, no, some of these costs are going to making new shipping containers because these companies can't, like a lot of these shipping companies are making tons of money right now.
Cost of fuel has a lot to do with this.
Cost of fuel has a lot to do with it. The fact that there's companies or factories that are shut down due to COVID. So,
But
a lot of these things weigh in on this.
What the fear about hyperinflation is, though, is not just legitimate increases in cost and things like that. It's more about the loss of confidence in the fiat currency that backs all of these products. And so we saw that in Germany. We saw that in
run on banks. Weimar Republic.
Basically a run on banks that, oh shit, the dollars that I have are no longer worth anything. And so no matter how much I work, no matter how much I make, I can't buy my essentials. And the people that have the essentials, they can't, or enough money to actually make a profit to make ends meet, that sort of thing. So it's just a general loss of confidence in the currency, which is kind of understandable because the value of a currency is basically arbitrary in the first place. It's not really worth anything inherently.
In Weimar Republic, which was Germany prior to the war, they had if somebody was going to say, I don't know, dinner, right? You'd have to pay for your dinner when you got there, because by the time you were done your dinner, it would have went up in price. If you were going to buy something at the store, you'd literally have a wheelbarrow full of money.
I can't wait until Bitcoin is our main currency and it fluctuates $15,000 in a day then, because
we all know how stable that is.
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Well,
this speaks to the general notion of capital as a measure of value in the first place, where it is an intrinsically increasingly accelerating process of inflation at its core, because the value is made by labor. And so under capitalism, the investment capital, it has to get a return on its investment. So there always has to be more labor produced from any investment. So if there's ever more money, then there always has to be more labor owed. But there only can be so much labor actually physically done. So if there's so much capital that cannot be fulfilled, like you cannot pay back the owed labor that all this capital represents, then confidence is lost. There's no way to actually believe that this labor is going to be paid back at any point. So you've got these stacks and stacks of money that can't be done anything with. You can't actually buy any labor with this capital anymore. And so it's worth nothing. So you can't use it to buy anything.
So then how do we prevent this, right? Like this is,
It's inevitable. It's inevitable.
Yeah, it's inevitable using capital.
Yeah.
But if we had a notion of value that wasn't so arbitrary, that wasn't predicated on owed labor as the core measure of value, say if it were something that were I don't know, ecosystemic health or general human happiness or actual concrete value,
or just the workers controlling the means of production and not having to have 13% fucking profit every quarter, okay? And us paying ourselves a little bit better, that might be a way of doing it. Perhaps
we don't need constant growth. Like we do not.
Yeah, we don't. Back around to the nature of value and the nature of labor itself, because like a lot of the work that we do, a lot of the production that we engage in isn't necessary. Like all this consumer shit that is circling back and forth across the ocean and then ending up at a landfill or in the ocean itself, most of that isn't necessary because it's just useless shit that's disposed of, an entire industry of disposable stuff, as well as an industry that's predicated on building stuff that is so shoddily made that you have to buy 10 of them over the course of your life, even though one object of the same utility could do just fine. But then this virtual economy, like so much of the stuff that is produced that people are paid to do, the labor that's paid to be done, isn't actually making anybody's life any better, isn't actually producing anything of structural value. In fact, it's actually producing destruction. It's destroying natural resources and destroying ecosystemic health and destroying people's lives. The war industry, for example, has its own raison d'etre in just killing people, in destroying economies, destroying countries, as a way of making profit for the people that own the means of that production. To stop doing that. Just like
Amen.
make stuff that's necessary,
what he said.
not stuff
What
that's
he
Yeah, well,
said.
this is the adage of, like, cast iron pots and products that are meant, lifetime guarantees.
I have shirts that I bought when I was in high school.
Yeah.
That's
That's
because
like
you're using that
the
Alex
80s,
Jones soap to wash them with.
the 1980s.
Doesn't
They're still
disintegrate
good.
in the wash.
They're still good. I got a couple of polos. I think they're polos or Ralph Lauren's or something like that, and they were probably made in the early sweatshops. They're probably better,
But
better material.
this
But
also speaks to a
yeah.
lot of the production that we should be able to bring back over here.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Like, this is, we should not be shipping items that cost $1 across the seas. That seems like there's bad math at play there. Or even stuff like, right now, I even know the seafood industry is like, a lot of our food is processed overseas. Most of our frozen food is processed overseas and then sent back to us for some bewildering, strange reason other than
Labor.
Yeah. Slave labor is what it boils down to,
Yeah.
right? Lowest cost production source.
Well, that and also separating the people who produce and the people who produce who process the food so that they cannot interact, so that they cannot collectively bargain, so they cannot organize with one another, so that they're separated and therefore easy to defeat.
Yeah.
How would you solve the problem short term? Would you tax the shit out of stuff coming in from other countries? Would you
guillotines?
like tariff things? I mean, you can't do guillotines, right?
I
Like,
know.
I know you
Guillotines
love
are
your,
off the
I know
table.
you love your guillotines.
No guillotines. That's
But if you needed a short-term fix, what the hell would you do?
As a short-term solution, tariffs. Like, there's a reason why tariffs exist in the first place, and it is that to incentivize local production and disincentivize the import of certain items. And so you can be very specific on those tariffs. You can specify that it's produced goods, and especially produced goods that are originally the materials are from here and then they're produced over there and they're brought back, because that's something that is just abjectly unnecessary.
Yeah,
And
well,
so to disincentivize through a financial penalty that can then also fund things on our side of the ocean,
right.
this would
But
help.
see, here's the only problem I have with that is then they're going to start doing the same thing to us. And
Oh, of
I
course,
really
yeah.
like my coffee, right? And I ain't
Yeah,
getting
fair enough.
coffee here. So
Fair enough.
I don't know. How's it all going to look in the end, right?
You're
So
already paying $16 a pound for good coffee. That's like,
but you know what I'm saying? And to your point, Eric, about, products going over there and then coming back over here. In my line of business where I'm working right now, the products that we sell that are Canadian are subpar to the Asian products. Just absolutely subpar. And they're the same price, if not more expensive.
well,
Right?
because we're forced to compete with that labor market as well, right? And so
Right.
where do we because we have to pay our labor more, we cut back on like the actual hard good itself is where we end up having to cut the most corners. But this is where a lot of these things can be changed with automation, right? Like,
Yes.
we don't need 15 people in a manufactured wood plant when most of it can be automated nowadays, right?
Mhm.
Like the full, like, to the point
And
where
that's the case with most productive processes at this point.
exactly.
There's still troubles to be worked out in terms of textile production, but a lot of it can indeed be automated.
And that's the thing. So we just kind of change our economy at the same time as we implement tariffs. We utilize the tariffs to help subsidize things like UBI.
So what do these workers do? What do these workers? Yeah. So here we go. Now we're getting into it.
There's nothing wrong with people not having jobs, right?
Exactly.
I know.
We need to transition
I'm not
towards
saying
a society in which there is no work, but
you should be able to do what you want to do.
Yeah.
Right. If you want to paint,
no compulsory
you paint.
work.
Well, I mean, you want to do what you want to do, what helps your community too, right? There should be those sort of things in mind, not just I want to lay around. Like, we should all try to contribute to society. I don't know at the Occupy camp, we all tried to do within your own means, within whatever you can do, right? Like,
think of it as a
not whipping
civil
somebody.
service, right?
Yeah.
Like what they tried to do in Cuba with the sugar harvest, right?
Right.
Good ideas behind it, just backbreaking labor and a manual process at the time that nobody wanted to do.
And I can't remember the point I was trying to get to though. But
we were talking
UBI. No, let's save a whole show for that, man.
Oh,
Seriously.
absolutely. But we need to face the fact that not everybody needs a job in the 21st century, right?
No.
Which means so long as we operate in a society that requires the trade of like commerce, when people don't work, we need to give them money, right? Like how else
and especially when the cost of labor is not increasing and the cost of goods is increasing. We can't sustain an economy in which workers continuously have less to spend on the same amount of goods.
Right? Like if real inflation, if you factor in the cost of housing into the CPI, like the true cost of housing for its current state, I'm willing to bet inflation in Canada is hovering somewhere around 14%.
Okay, I found a graph earlier. Hang on a sec here.
Because like right now, if we don't start like the homeless crisis is getting worse because people can't afford to live in homes. Like this is.
Okay, here it is right here. Hang on a sec. I'm going to send it to you in Discord. So it's off of Reddit. Yay. But I know it's somewhere else because I had found it somewhere else before. There was actually I have this somewhere. It's cited. But if you can pop that up, it's a link. Let me know when you got it up.
So explain the chart to me here, Michael.
Well, it's pretty easy. So our house prices are going through the roof, and the amount of money we make is shit. That's basically it in a nutshell.
Well, I can safely attest to the fact that I am literally making the same amount that I've made for the past 15, 20 years, it seems. It's like fluctuated a few $1,000s more every so often. But the expenditures that I've had to expend have grown exponentially. Like when I first started renting my own apartment, I was paying $699 a month in downtown Toronto. That same apartment, basically 20 years later, is now like $3,000 a month. And it's absolutely insane. It makes no sense. I can't figure it out. And
I'm currently making the same amount of money as I did when I was in high school in the 1980s. I have made more money once in a while in my life, but that's pretty flippin' sad.
And is that in real dollars or is that in adjusted dollars?
That's in real dollars.
And if you account for inflation, so to speak,
I'm
making
that's exactly
what I was making before. Yeah.
I've been living in this place for 10 years, and one of my neighbors is paying literally twice as much as I am in rent.
It's disgusting.
Same apartment. It really
is.
It's
disgusting. I don't like. I don't know how this. Like, I get so angry. I get so pissing angry at this because, like, how's it going to change? How's it going to change? So long as we allow the hoarding of property, that we allow this.
You're not going to throw out the guillotine comment again, are you?
No.
Guillotines.
I'm talking about pens. Like we pen the landlords together.
I was thinking pens being mightier than the sword, but okay, yeah, we can do that.
We need to have big social movements again. We need to have big labor movements again. We need to have worker co-ops. We need to have people like you, Matt, who unionize and organize their workplace, right?
Well, everybody, you all you need is 2 employees to organize. That's it. And if anybody wants to know how I did it, like call me. message me. I'll tell you it wasn't that hard because, like I was saying earlier, everybody was bitching about the boss, and really the only option was unionize or get the fuck out. And
how many people work in your work?
probably about 19.
Wow, that's incredible.
Yeah.
And is it a franchise or is it just a mom and pop?
No, it's an entrepreneurial driven organization, but we're not going to go too much into that because I don't want to give them any reason to potentially can me other than I work towards organizing their workplace. So
well, good. Congratulations. Well, I'll ask you these questions off camera sometime.
Yes, absolutely. We can go on a deep dive anytime on that because yeah.
Right on.
Thou shalt not disparage thy workplace or post naughty things on LinkedIn. That's
right. So as you guys can see, compared to the United States, things are really screwed up here in Canada. So
wow, I didn't realize how much of a disparity that was.
Yeah.
Well, this is the thing. In America, one thing I've noticed is they've spread their housing really well out. You know, like you move to Chicago, you move to Ohio, you look at housing prices in the United States, you have a large web of housing to compare. Whereas in Canada, we mainly have major centers. You know, if you do get outside some of the major centers, and basically any place in Canada right now that is on city services is ridiculously priced, regardless of where you go. You go to Oxbow, Saskatchewan. I bought a house in Oxbow, Saskatchewan for $35,000. You can buy that house right now for like $240,000.
Yeah.
Wow.
So it's insane, and I don't know how people are eating. I do know it came out a couple of weeks ago that the housing market in Canada, as you know, we're probably well aware, has been fueled by the rich. You know, like Vancouver, there was
speculators.
Well, not just speculators, but we knew came out about literally in August or October of this year, little blip on our media radar. But 25 years ago, the government of Canada knew that the housing market in the lower BC mainland was being impacted by millionaires from China, right? So they would come over and inflate the price of the markets, and now we don't just have the millionaire immigration problem that's, you know, inflating housing markets. We have the corporate investments inflating housing markets, right? Like when you have entities that are investing $1 billion in capital into rental properties in Canada because they know that it's like inflation, hello, and
yeah, there's large companies that are going around and doing just that. They're just buying up all kinds of property and renting them out.
Yeah, like literally millions of housing units have been purchased up by these large landlord organizations, basically, as a way to produce profit.
So I sent you another little article there that we were looking at earlier there too, just sort of on topic still with, you know, cost of living, inflation, and the whole labor thing. Like this is all so tied together. So it basically says it's been 20 years since inflation's been this high in Canada. So
that's about right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they're blaming this on food prices and
gasoline.
You're always going to have a fuel surcharge and stuff like this that applies, but most of
shelter's gone up 4.8%. Food prices 3.9. See here, meat roast 9.5. So I mean they're going into it a little bit. Chicken.
Yeah, meat is apparently up almost like 13% across the category, and I still don't like even with oil and gas. The cost of production of oil and gas has not skyrocketed. You know, like this is, you know, back in the 2000s, we used to talk about, you know, when the first oil price jump happened that we remember when it went to like $1. Oh my God, we got to put 3 digits on our gas price signs. The lifting costs and refining costs of gasoline hadn't gone up in like 15 years. This is just a cash grab. This is a cash grab. People in the oil patch are not making any more money, and the only time they do make more money than they're currently making is with fucking overtime.
Mm.
Right?
Well, and the
Like,
great thing was, hey man, when oil was $30 a barrel, everybody was still paying like 70, 80 cents a liter.
oil was $30 a barrel about 6 months ago, wasn't it? I seem to remember it
Not
collapsing there
too
to
long ago.
almost $10, right?
Yeah, it went down. I think it was like 30. There's 30s in its lowest. So,
And I don't know how we're gonna fight against this system. Like, if you're gonna inflate the cost of goods, you've got to, like, especially in a country like Canada. In Canada, I think we should be pretty much, you know, inflation free really for ourselves because we've got everything, right? Like, it's our dollar is backed
we
by
don't though. We don't
solid
though. We have
resources.
zero manufacturing almost in this country. We can't make shit. We can't even make our own COVID medicine. So
This is true.
we can't make anything.
We have
You
the
know, and I'm not a
potential,
nationalist
but
waving a flag. You guys know that for a fact, but you know, there
of course,
needs to
but
be
localizing production isn't necessarily a nationalist position. It's a commonsensical position to,
We're the
right.
largest
hey, why not make
producer
the
of
stuff where you need
mustard.
it?
We're the largest producer of mustard in the world, and we only really
Mustard.
make like craft mustard. You know, like French's does not have a mustard plant in Canada because, like, why would they?
Oh,
And how
well, we're
many
gonna have to
people
work on it because French's is better than Heinz anyway. So this
like
Heinz screwed over the people in Leamington.
these are the things that we need to scale back on and go, wait a second. Like, why are we not processing our fish on Canadian shores?
Would only make sense.
You know, like with the price of lobster being $16 a pound in the shell and like $60 a pound shucked, I think we can afford to pay Canadian labor to process that stuff. You know, the price of yeah, why the conglomerization of the meat industry was supposed to be a good thing for the economy, but instead all it did was really depress the workforce. You know, like
Well,
Centralization of production.
I'd be interested to see how much, you know, food prices and stuff like that would go up if you started paying people like even a living flipping wage. Because right now, you know, the majority of our food that comes from Canada is picked by foreign workers that come in and they're housed in shitty places on the farms and they don't even get health care.
yeah,
Harper made sure of that.
yeah, well, of course, that was a prior, like,
Yeah.
and like, you want to talk about COVID ravaging communities, you're talking the migrant farm workers bunked
Yeah.
12 into a trailer. Like,
Yep.
but this is the thing. So, if you want to create the industry here and pay the workers, subsidize the cost of the goods at the end point. You know,
Oh
like,
no, but that's government intervention.
regulate the
Hold,
pricing.
hold on. What about all the government money that's given to all these oil companies? What about the corporate welfare that's handed out to all these big companies? You
Well,
know,
see, this is
what
the
about
justification for
General
oil
Electric
subsidies.
plays like no tax? They get like a tax credit, you know, for a couple years ago.
It's
So like
supposed to be that we pay oil subsidies as a means to keep the cost of goods low, but the cost of goods is now skyrocketing despite those subsidies still being in place. Why not apply those subsidies directly to the goods?
they've never been for us consumers to have low prices. They've just been for companies to have bigger profits.
Therein lies the failure of that logic.
So
right.
therein lies why we have to seize the bloody means.
Ah!
Like,
Where's my pitchfork?
yeah, and well, once again, Striketober, you can do this by unionizing your workplace. You're effectively seizing the means as best you can within the capitalist society, right? Like, this allows you to give a little bit of worker control over the operation. You
With
know,
enough.
yeah, like you can demand basically the profits come back to the employees versus into shareholders, which are just hedge fund. The myth of the shareholder is like, my mind is blown that they've got this image of grandma and grandpa sitting on their nest egg holding, 50 shares of Microsoft. And while
Maybe
those
one
people
day
do
it was like
exist,
that, but not
but
anymore.
no, it's
Yeah,
all institutional.
They're out there. There's not many of them, but you know, like I said, what the top 20% of the economy owns 80% of the stock market. So
Yeah.
I have no shares of anything.
Yeah, well, trust me, you're not missing out on anything. That's
Yeah.
that's other than like I told you, I lost money because, it's magic. The wizards, the wizards with their margarita machines, as Eric was saying.
I'm sure you could figure it out. So
No, it's stacked against us because they have the tools to prevent you, the common individual, from being able to trade at their levels, right? Even in
It's
the
an
response
insider's game,
times.
for
Yeah,
sure.
it's an insider's game. Even to the point that, you think you can go and buy like when I initially thought I'd check out, trading in the 21st century, I installed this app on my phone, but I was restricted to only buying the stocks that they allowed to trade on their application. So basically, it's a fund, right? Like
yeah.
they've created their own money market fund with consumers like me that go, I'm going to trade stock, and I can only buy the stock this company allows me to buy, which seems ridiculous anyways, right? Like if you're gonna offer a platform to buy and sell shares, you shouldn't be able to restrict the shares you can buy and sell.
Mhm. So de-dollarization, I noticed you post something in this thread topic about that, and that seemed really interesting to me. So I didn't read the article, but I think I know what it's talking about, and it's probably talking about foreign companies' assets of U.S. funds and them selling it off. Is that correct?
Where is this?
In the thread for inflation, cost of living, gas prices.
Does it have an icon or a picture? There's a lot
It's
in there.
China, U.S. focus.
Oh,
Engaged.
yes.
Yeah, you
This
remember?
here.
Did you read that article?
No, I had not read this article because this is
Okay,
a.
let's see if I'm correct in my assessment.
Yeah. Let me make this larger for you.
Yeah, I'm right. Share the status of global reserve currency. Yeah. Because that's what the United States has been all along. Their dollar has been the world currency, basically. And there's a lot of countries that have been slowly moving away from the US dollar.
Yeah, the
And
ones that have been able to do it generally haven't been invaded by the United States yet, right?
right.
This was if you stopped buying American oil, or like traditionally it was if you stopped buying American oil, or if you had oil, or if you all of a sudden decided to move away from the US dollar as currency, all of a sudden you got like a Marine Expeditionary Force on your shores for some reason, right?
Strange how that happens.
And this is the thing, like once again for me to ask,
Scroll
in
down
my
there a bit. Scroll down a
oh,
bit.
in my amateur ignorance here, um, I can understand the Americans being impacted by inflation a lot more than Canada because America has a lot of debts that could come due. And they don't have the financial means to back it up, I don't think, unless they literally start, liquidating Tesla, right? Like,
Yeah, so this is just weaponized economics is what this is.
yeah.
So,
Yeah, it's the
Or by other means.
yeah. And the States is pretty good at it. They've been doing IMF, World Bank. Yep. Yep.
Yeah, like this is what they do with Cuba, right? Like countries can
Yep.
conduct trade with Cuba, but the banks can't conduct trade with Cuba. It's
Right.
typical shenanigans, and we come to this conclusion every week that we just have to tear down the system. Like this.
Guillotines. We just need more guillotines.
Solution? Yeah.
I know.
Yeah.
I'll invest and buy some shares in a guillotine manufacturing company.
Yeah,
Right?
well, I don't think we're actually going to need the guillotines. I don't like as much
No,
as
'cause
much as I
everything's gonna
love
come
the
crumbling
idea of
apart.
the spectacle of like Jeff Bezos's head rolling down a flight of stairs. And
No, at a certain point, the gears will just grind to a halt, and then we'll all kind of be in trouble, unfortunately.
I think COVID delayed those gears grinding. I think they were able to mask the visibility of the shitstorm we're in. And now
Yep.
you're going to see people trying to blame the COVID handouts and all the COVID spending for the reason why we are in this inflationary position now. but we were headed there already. Like,
yeah, this was
Right.
there have been a number of moments in the recent history where it has been on the precipice of something major happening, 2008 being the most notable one, that it was forestalled by a huge amount of money being just thrown into the void. And again, at the beginning of this pandemic, a huge amount of money was thrown into the void to prop it up. And that can only be done so many times and for so long before it stops working. Because again, there's that idea of confidence in the currency, and if enough money is thrown into a void summoned from the ether, eventually the the economy, if you were to personify it, would recognize that, oh wait, none of this is real. It's all imaginary money and it's being thrown into its own void. And what are we even doing here anymore?
so maybe that's the solution. We grind it to a halt.
Then shit gets real.
Same
Yeah.
answer we have every show, guys.
Like, well, and
But the
this is
problem
the
is it's going to be very unpleasant because our current
Yep.
way of life is very dependent on things remaining stable. And there's so many mechanisms in the system that are devised just to maintain stability, not to improve anybody's lives, not to fulfill any needs, just to maintain stability as a means by which to control the economy. So when that stability rocks to a certain extent, everything will come crashing down. Like supply chains will stop working.
Mhm.
We will have utter chaos when it comes to meeting our needs because this tenuous, barely held together ball of twine is no longer functioning to fulfill the thing that it was not very good at doing in the first place. So what then?
well, that's oh shit.
Hold
Fervent
on.
fervent nationalism will take hold. You know that.
Oh yes,
That's
that
when we
scares
need to
me.
start organizing. That's when we need to start talking to labor unions more. That's when we need to start hitting the
Well,
street.
this
Praxis,
is
praxis,
It needs to be
praxis.
done now.
this is a bit of the discussion that happened this weekend because, as Eric will attest to, it was the 10th anniversary reunion of Occupy London. And
Mhm.
I'll let Eric talk on this more, but the one thing that everybody has really been talking about with these discussions is that we need to reorganize, right? Like this is, yeah,
Yeah,
like,
a lot of the conversation we had an Occupy retrospective panel discussion last Friday, and so a lot of the discussion around that centered around how do we create a unified left, or if not at least a unified left, at least a functioning cooperative left that isn't constantly backbiting itself and scattering to the winds, because as we saw from Occupy, like a lot of the folks that were, let's say, problematic at Occupy have now drifted off into fascism or some other weird, unfortunate authoritarian ideology because
Mhm.
they didn't cohere behind an idea of for the community being better. It was co-opted by this individualistic mode of activism that we now see rising in Trumpism and anti-vaxxism and all those other sorts of things. So how do we create a social movement? How do we reinvigorate a social movement that won't fall victim to attempts to undermine it using that hyper individualism? And a lot of the answers come around to like we need big tent leftism, like a mode of leftist politics that matches where people are at. People like my mom, people like my dad, like people who are regular folk who aren't necessarily well read in terms of theory, in terms of communist philosophy, et cetera, but as as somebody who has experienced the downfall of the capitalist economy of the golden age of the 60s and 70s, that has been through several recessions, that has seen their net worth and their general power of social power diminish over the course of their lives, how, like, we need to create a narrative that clarifies the reason for that, that isn't, oh those gosh darn millennials, or oh those gosh darn environmentalists, or those gosh darn insert ethnicity here, um, and is resilient to that form of co-optation and undermining. And that's challenging because all of the means of communication, all the means of media, of narrative creation are owned by capital. So we need a means of communication and a means of narrative construction that is our own. The internet is a potential for that, but also, obviously, the internet doesn't work for that for, I hope, obvious reasons. Again, it is easily co-opted by the powers that be.
Well, that's exactly it, right? Like this is, and we need to. It's kind of disappointing how disorganized the left has become. How fractured and splintered, and can it be pulled back together? Like we all like I follow a lot of Twitch streamers, I follow a lot of YouTube streamers. The leftist infighting amongst all of them is like it's disheartening. It's
scary.
Yeah, like can we not put 12 leftists at a table and agree that we need to overthrow this system? Like this is or is
but
it
what specific way does it look like in the future? Doesn't matter. Nobody's going to get their way. Like no leftist dream, no utopian vision of tomorrow is going to come to fruition. Period. Nobody's going to be right. It's going to be something unexpected, some synergy, some cooperation. There's an important word right there, of all of us working together and collaborating on a vision of the future that will actually make any sort of difference.
So the closest thing I've ever seen to this working would be the Quebec student movement. And it definitely worked. And for folks that don't know about it, back in 2012, they planned on raising tuition fees for students in Quebec. And they wouldn't have any part of it, the students in Quebec. And they democratized the schools. They were already democratized. They got together at the schools and they voted that they needed to have strikes. So they had walkouts and strikes, and soon enough, there was hundreds of thousands of people on the streets, banging pots and pans, moms and dads out there. I witnessed it firsthand and walked down the streets with these people, and people would come out of their houses and onto their balconies and like cheer for them and stuff. Meanwhile, the cops would be shooting us with pepper guns, and but it worked. They ended up having an election, and that was one of the primary things of the election, and the party that said that they would not raise the student fees won. So, we need to gather. I don't think it's going to ever be like Occupy, because that was so difficult. It was so arbitrary.
Well, it's easy to do a single issue protest. It's easy to accomplish simple and discrete ends, but
I think we have to have a number of those. We need to have a number of those going on.
Well, this is where,
proof of concept.
Well, like anything else, like nothing's right away. I still see the Occupy movement having ripple effects to today through conversations we're having about the 1% versus 99% and stuff like that. So I don't think that the very next thing we're going to do is actually going to be the be all end all either. So why don't we pick something to fight against, like maybe having, a $20 an hour minimum, for workers, or for
the problem is, so you have to avoid things like the discussion on the minimum wage. People just they can't wrap their heads around the fact that even now that Nobel laureates have said raising the minimum wage doesn't impact the economy. They just look at it as
sure. Then we'll give them something that they fucking understand. Then that
I think the biggest
in this country
thing
shit,
to
right?
focus on moving forward for the entire globe is housing. Housing as a motherfucking human right. Like
it does make sense, because that is kind of a universal among all peoples.
Like it is impacting everyone, and if you are in a housing deficit, if you are underhoused, if you are homeless, you are
forcibly denied of housing.
Yeah, you're fucked. You're fucked. Yeah. Right? And
yeah, you can't lead a full life if you do not have a home.
No, God no.
Or if you're paying like the majority of your income into said property that you're living in.
House poor or whatever.
Yeah.
I would love to see, this upcoming spring, I would love to see, organizations take the parks again. But take them in a democratic, like take them in a public manner, not like we're here to like to educate you and inform you as to what's happening, right? Like we're not here to shut it down today, but we're going to shut it down because we're here to get bigger and larger. And like we want to talk to you about the crisis that we're facing, right? Like this the same way we did it with environmentalism in the 80s and 90s, right? Like
so there you go. So your topic of choice is the housing market. So run with that. Say we start building a movement around that, right?
I
All
think it
I'm
needs to
saying is
encompass all movements. It needs to encompass it all. Like this is the like as much as it's great to
it's
say let's focus on one topic.
right.
That you
Right.
can't like.
But here's right, and I don't disagree with you because that's what Occupy tried to do, right? And that's why everybody else had a problem with it. And we don't need to necessarily like right now we're also talking about the fact that we can't get along, we're stabbing each other in the back, nobody talks to anybody else, leftists don't work with each other. Well, then let's pick one single issue that we all agree on and we can all work on. We don't have to be side by side. I can work in my community, you can work in yours, whatever, but we can work towards that common goal, right? And see, we bring a whole bunch more people along with us during that, right? And maybe we'll get along a little better when we go for our next one, right? And that was part of that was part of our training that we had at the Quebec Student Movement. Me and Bailey went there for a weekend and they gave us this whole training thing. And that was basically part of it right there, right? Like, even though the whole spectrum is what they want to talk about, it's difficult to do that, right? Because people don't get this or they
No,
don't get that or
exactly,
whatever,
exactly,
right?
exactly.
So, and when you do get that victory, everybody around you sees that, right? And they want to join in. Plus, you feel invigorated, you feel empowered, right? And you want to do more, right? And you see that this democracy stuff works. So, yeah, that's the way I think it needs to.
For sure.
Right, and I think that's the sort of thing we need to try to focus on. I don't disagree with like
I
let's
just
go out
want
there and
representation, right? Like this is the thing. I want the boomers in the fucking park. Like this is
we had a couple we had a few boomers in the park.
Oh yeah, of course.
Like this
we
is
Occupy
few
did
boomers.
have
Yeah.
that cross generational.
We had a good crush. Yeah.
Yeah, no, like this when I said like I want the Volvo driving soccer moms. I want it to be like this is.
Well, yes, and this is one big thing that I was attempting to do during my time at Occupy was make it non-scary to the middle. Like everything I do when it comes to activism, everything I do when it comes to politics is aimed directly at my mom because she's just a middle-aged white lady.
This is why we picked Eric to be a spokesperson.
Don't you start with that. But like it's all targeted towards folks that have benefited from the economy as it was, who are now realizing they've been fucked over by it. And so there's a whole demographic of folks that are in that boat and they're hitting retirement age. They got plenty of time on their hands because they're hitting retirement age, or maybe they don't because they're busy still working because they can't retire, they can't afford to retire. And so yeah, they need to be welcomed in as well as children. Get them started early. Get folks like educating young folks in these larger concepts so that as they're growing up, and Generation Z, they're pretty up on things. Like I know a lot of very lefty Gen Zs.
The right has mastered this over the past 20 years.
Yeah. Oh, they're masters at generating a narrative, and
like
I keep going on
look
about
at
narratives.
PragerU.
Yeah, PragerU. Like they create a worldview that is like it's not communicated rationally. It's communicated through sound bites, so through aesthetic senses, where they're creating characters of leftists, caricatures of leftists that are no good, darn dirty, lazy communists,
lazy socialists.
They just want your free stuff and they want you to be their slaves, and that's the idea that they're trying to create in people, and it really works well. Like it really does hoodwink a large part of the population. But to fight against that, like we can't reason people out of that position because they've had this worldview created. No amount of reasoning can undermine a worldview like that. All we can do is use a competing narrative.
And us lefties that know some theory have to stop being so hoity-toity and using a whole bunch of big words and thinking our
jargon,
shit
man.
don't stink, and just sort of cut it a little more simplistic. Look at simplistic. And yeah, and focus.
Not like simple, not like reaching for the bottom of the barrel, but like
but not use the academic jargon that we like to use when we academic folk like to get together once in a while.
Well, it's kind of the same as the economists speaking their weird arcane dialect.
Exactly.
I did remember the clip from earlier. Stagnation, flagnation.
You're like what the hell are they talking about, right? Yeah.
Yeah, it's in economics, right? Like
and couple that with praxis. We need to have theory and hitting the streets. And that was one of the biggest problems I saw at the university. There was maybe 2 professors there that were tenured that would actually go out and do things. Other than that, everybody was afraid to do anything, even the students, right?
Yep.
So there wasn't an awful lot of, what I mean by praxis,
don't seem to be too afraid to party now.
What I mean by praxis, folks, is like the when you take theory and you actually utilize it, you put your words to your feet. You hit the street.
Deeds, not words.
Exactly.
Deeds, not words.
So, and that's what a lot of, I think a lot of leftists are either cliquey activists or whatever they call it, or they just like to, do nothing.
Well, there's a disillusionment. And I can't blame a lot of folks for that because I too fall into this boat where I am so fucking burnt out from failure after failure after failure and just watching the world get worse, watching the climate collapse, etc., that people are demoralized. They don't know what to do. They don't have options for what to do because there's nothing left for them to do. So I can understand that people are disillusioned and not willing to do something and scared to do stuff because they're limited in one way or another. But there is there's a role to be played for the folks that can do something, and also there is a need for guidance to provide people with options for ways that they themselves can do something, even if it's little, even if it's something in their own backyard, literally in their own backyard. But that's hard to do.
Well,
let's find a common goal.
Well, and that's where I think we just need to start organizing again and effectively. Like this is, they're beating us at our own game because we're the friendly ones. Like this is we're the this is
we're the guys that don't hurt people, but they seem to have again, they're winning the narrative war, painting us as violent, thuggish, blah blah blah, when it's anything but.
Yeah, you can't justify a response behavior based on the initial action, and they keep forgetting that the system itself is the action against the people at this point, right? Like
I haven't seen Antifa storm the White House. I haven't seen them, block hospitals
but...
Oh yeah, right?
No, we kind of we don't want to burn everything down. Other than, I want to burn the system down, but that's that's just
but I don't want
idea.
anybody to die in the process.
Exactly.
Even the worst fascists, I'd punch them in the face, but I don't want them to die. I don't want them to suffer appreciably. I still want them to have
cancel the order for the pit of vipers, please. Cancel the order. Eric is not down for the viper pit.
The guillotines are not real.
Exactly.
Purely a metaphor. I am definitely always joking about that.
So,
because I don't want anybody to die in this transition.
Speaking of transitions.
Oh, good segue. It's a segue.
Let's talk a little pop culture here, folks. So there's 2 topics that we got in the pop culture thing. Actually 3. Number 1, Baldwin goes bang bang.
Ooh dear.
Number 2, Atwood, goes full turf. And number 3, Donald Trump's new social media network.
I don't like any of these topics. Pass.
These are all the things that have just come out in the last week.
Oh dear, what a mess.
So, yeah.
This
so,
let's
just get Atwood. Let's get Atwood out of the way.
Okay.
Yeah. So, you can
does everybody know who Margaret Atwood is?
No,
right.
who's
let's
Margaret
just inform
Atwood?
our viewing audience here. So Margaret Atwood is an author, a Canadian author, writes a lot of dystopian science fiction stuff. Wrote The Handmaid's Tale as a prime example. So this is a fairly landmark piece of literature, as are a number of her other pieces of literature. And she does have a lot of really great things to say in terms of social commentary. But unfortunately, she posted she reposted on Twitter the article that's about to pop up on your screen with no comment, assuming, therefore, that she supports this without any reservation.
Yeah,
so the general notion being that why can't we say woman anymore? Why are we saying people who menstruate, people who have uteruses, uteri, whatever it is? Why can't we just say women? Well, because, Margaret, some people who have uteruses are not women, and some women don't have uteruses.
Well,
different groups.
Once again, I think we're dealing with, a failure to understand the new world we live in, where, like, Margaret, nobody's telling Margaret, we're not saying you're not a woman anymore, Margaret. Nobody's saying that to you, Margaret. We're saying that sometimes the literature needs to be updated a bit. Like this is...
It's just a simple adjustment of terms and a simple adjustment of understanding. Nothing is being denied of anybody at all. It's not the woke mob or whatever trying to take over your literature or anything like that. It's just we need to understand that sometimes women don't have uteruses and sometimes people who have uteruses are not women. And that's it. That's all that's happening here.
And yeah, but lo and behold, but that's okay.
She's a turf.
Yeah.
She's a turf.
Well, a lot of people are. A lot of people are. Like this
Regrettably, it's true.
It's like we need to have some exclusionary
I respect her work
based on
I do.
assigned gender roles. Yeah, I don't even like it. Maybe it's going to make me take a whole new perspective on her work moving forward.
You know what? I still like her work. I think she's done a lot for the feminist movement.
Broken clocks are always right twice a day. There is so much about Margaret Atwood's work that I respect and I wholeheartedly agree with. It's just you're wrong on this issue. The same thing with J.K. Rowling. Like the Harry Potter series still has a lot of value. It is still an excellent piece of literature and very progressive for its time, but she done fucked up on this issue, that issue, and the next issue. And the regrettable thing is, in both cases, they're doubling down rather than making an effort to understand that maybe not totally right.
Wait, Eric, what about cancel culture? Why don't you cancel them? You shouldn't be saying these things, Eric. You shouldn't be saying these things. You're a good leftist. You should be saying that she should be canceled.
Oh dear, now I'm going to get canceled because I didn't because I said that she shouldn't get canceled. Oh no. But no, cancel culture is not a real thing. It's not a real effect. It is an illusion. But that's just it's the incapacity of the system as it exists to understand nuance and the amplifying effect of chaos on the social media web. Because what is more popular on social media than outrage? So any effective outrage ends up amplified, whereas any nuanced discussions ends up buried. Because we've dealt with the issue in 5 minutes, and we've addressed it fully. There's nothing else to be said.
That's exactly it. Like this is it. Yep.
So
think before you speak, Margaret. Think before you speak.
That's it. That's all. That's all we're saying.
Otherwise, leave it to us people without a platform.
Yes.
Let us say the stupid things for you.
So let's go to a funnier topic here. Maybe you can pull up an article for us, Matt, on Trump's new social media network.
Oh,
we had a bunch of them in the Discord there.
Yeah, just 1 second here, because I I just had a
On
bunch
a
of that
lighter
up.
note.
On a lighter note.
So for some background information here, this was a new social media platform that Trump has endorsed because obviously he's been kicked off of all the mainstream social media networks because free speech and yada, yada, yada. So this is a social media network that is devised as a way to encourage free speech. So there are no controls of the quote unquote left authoritarian blah 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 controlling what they have to say, so they can speak quote unquote truth. So they call it truth.
Oh,
What do they
interesting.
call it?
Trump's new social media network has 30 days to stop breaking the rules of its software license. So apparently,
Donald Trump shady business practices?
You don't say.
Really? I can't believe it. Just
so the
blows
Software
my
Freedom
mind.
Conservancy says the former President Donald Trump's new social media or social network violated a free and open source software licensing agreement by ripping off decentralized social network Mastodon. The Trump Media and Technology Group, TMTG, has 30 days to comply with the terms of the license before its access is terminated, forcing it to rebuild the platform or face legal action. That's interesting. So they may not even be able to launch this thing for a while. They may be having problems. So that's interesting.
Yeah, so what this boils down to is because the alt-right is they've got the OAN network, they've got American News, they're doing
Rebel.
like we were talking big tent leftism. They are doing big tent rightism, and they're doing it very well. So this is the Trump Media and Technology Group, because Trump is, like, let's face it, Trump is the biggest brand the right has had in
since Ronald Reagan or
70
Margaret Thatcher.
years.
Mm-hmm.
I'd go further. I'd say he's
Would
bigger
you?
than Reagan.
Ooh, wow.
That's saying
Bigger
something.
than Reagan. Holy
A
shit.
bold statement there.
Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? When they're wearing Trump sweaters at anti-vax rallies in London, Ontario, he's bigger than
I
Reagan.
mean, that is something else.
Right? Like, this is, I don't think half the people in London, Ontario could point out Reagan on a fucking photo wall at this point. Like, this is not disparaging the other half in London, Ontario, who could identify Ronald Reagan on a poster board of pictures. But yeah, like, this is, another.
So what are all the so this TMTG, this Trump Media and Technology Group, what are its me and you were talking about it, and you were saying something about it wanting to do other ventures too.
Yeah,
so it's not
so
just a
if you
social
look
media
at
network.
the screen there, you've got the Trump Media and Technology Group and the markets they kind of want to operate in, right? So their first ones are Truth Social, which is their competitor to Facebook because they've all been kicked off of their markets. So think, Parler, right? So this is their version of Parler. They're going to try and bring a legitimate version to market.
So
apparently.
this will be a place where you can spout racist and fascist ideology.
Whatever evangelical gobbledygook you want, like dinosaurs and Jesus fighting one another on the shores of Syria to claim that it's America or whatever they want to make up. You're going to have Truth Social, which is going to compete with Facebook. You're going to have TMTG Plus, which is going to be their streaming platform, which just imagine like how 100 Huntley Street that network is going to be all the time. And then you've got TMTG News, which they've really already started with their OAN network and American News. And God forbid they start getting into payment processing. But yeah, like this is what we need to be doing, and we need to be doing it without like liberal Facebook, right? Like,
well, it'd be nice to be able to get a whole bunch of leftists together and form some sort of a network. You know?
Well, to have something that is as well organized as this could have been, that would actually generate a zeitgeist, like some well-produced videos, some well-produced social media, some way of sharing information, organizing events, and coordinating mutual aid. Because like the internet was at one point a anarchist utopia in the Wild West days.
So we basically
But
need like 90s internet is what we need
need the
to
90s
save.
internet. Yeah. Okay, let's get in a time machine
Yeah.
and go back on the Usenet, and I'll get my Netscape Navigator browser, and we can
Just rewatch Hackers this weekend, and we'll all be ready for the revolution.
hack that Gibson right there.
Exactly. Yeah, no, it's this is like, yeah, like let's pull all of us together. Like let's pull all of us together, and that's really all we can do moving forward. Is like next week, somebody bring a friend. Like this is.
So that's the scary thing. I signed up. I'm in the waiting room for this Truth Social. Truth Social. So there you go. Join the waiting list, folks.
Follow the truth. Truth Social.
Well, and this is also why it is so hilarious, is that a lot of it has been, well, a lot of the accounts have already been hacked, as did happen with Parler. And image of a pig with poop on its balls that has been posted on a lot of prominent figures' pages on this social network, including Donald Trump's himself. There is indeed this specific image I saw screenshotted on Donald Trump's account on this thing. Pretty funny, gotta say.
Do True Social screenshots Trump. Oh wait. They won't show it on there, man.
Yeah, probably not.
You'd have to find it on Reddit or something.
I've definitely seen it. You can take my word for it, but
yeah, no, I'd believe it. I did see some screenshots floating around because basically what it looks like happened is they kind of launched the site and then shit started happening, and now they've kind of put it behind a waiting list wall.
Hackers posts.
Yeah, there it is. Third link down.
Oh,
Business Insider, you had it there. Yeah,
right there.
But that's on a fake Trump account, though. That's on a fake
Trump
account.
Like welcome to paywalls, everybody.
Yeah. Ad blockers. Oh well, what can you do?
Yep.
So yeah, so that's a thing, folks. That's hilarious. Yeah.
Why don't we move on to some significantly less funny news?
Okay,
pop
what was
culture.
the other thing in pop culture we were going to talk about?
Alec Baldwin.
Ooh, Baldwin goes bang bang.
Yeah. So this tragic tale is one of. It's still hard to say where the fuck up is, but the long story short is that on the set of the Rust movie, Alec Baldwin shot one of the production staff with a prop gun that was loaded with live rounds. So a lot had to go wrong here. For one, why was there a gun on set that have live bullets on it? Why, for that matter, was a live bullet even anywhere near the set of this movie? And why would the gun have had live bullets in it at any point? The story, as I have heard, is that
go ahead.
Some of the production staff had taken that gun to target range for target practice, but why? Why would that gun have left the custody of the production staff? Why would it have come back into the custody of production staff with live rounds still in it? Why did nobody check the gun? And not to place too much blame here on Mr. Baldwin, but why did he himself not check the rounds? Because anybody who's taken a gun safety course will tell you, don't trust anybody. Never trust someone that hands you a gun and says it's unloaded. You have to check it yourself because you must assume that it is always loaded. It is always live. You will kill someone if you point a gun at it.
Because he was in character.
So, like, I haven't read anywhere about the gun going to a shooting range or anything like that, but I have read some stuff about, like, cold guns and hot guns and the way that they're handled and stuff. And apparently, like, these procedures are normal and these rounds are normal and the way that they do these things are normal, but they had had a lot of labor disputes prior, and there really wasn't, I don't think there was the right people looking after these things. And I think that's what the problem was. And prior to this incident, there was a whole bunch of people complaining about unsafe working conditions and that. So I think they were cutting a lot of corners and busting the unions nuts, or not working with a lot of union folk. And that's, I think it's negligence. I think, in my opinion, that this is going to be
Oh,
a
absolutely. This is
criminal negligence charge against probably not Baldwin, because, and it
well,
should really be, because
this'll
he's a
be a
producer.
workplace injury is what this will be. This will be a workplace injury. This will not, like, you will not see, I don't think you'll see criminal charges because of this. You'll see it kind of, there's too much money involved and too much of a bad name and a pending IATSE contract negotiation right now that
Mm,
they're going to want this story to go away as quickly as possible. Um, on some like obviously there's negligence here, like Eric said. You do like I'm sorry, don't even hand me a gun because I've shotguns. I don't like them. I don't like the
mm,
way they feel. I know exactly what they're capable of when I'm shooting them, and they make
mm.
me very uncomfortable because
Yes.
anything can fucking happen,
Yeah.
right? Like
So
You could kill someone. You could kill yourself.
yeah,
Who
as
can
the
tell?
story goes, hours before the tragedy, a half dozen camera crew workers walked off the set to protest working conditions. Some of their complaints including long hours, long commutes, and waiting for their paychecks, according to insider sources. Uh, so, yeah, here. Oh,
it's
safety protocols. Oh, most pertinent was their qualms with safety protocols, including gun inspections not being strictly followed on set.
Dear.
At least one of the camera operators reportedly complained last weekend to a production manager about gun safety on the set. So it goes on, right?
That's ominous.
So, you know,
and well,
and
this is the thing, and this is why IATSE is actually a thing is Hollywood productions are basically every movie you see is a business and it's run as a business as if it doesn't have the $300 million budget, they're running under time and under budget and they're cutting corners and they're, doing like over to like extended shifts and stupid shit. Like these guys were apparently working 17-hour days and then driving an hour each way to get to their hotel the next night. Like just horrible conditions that you'd be like, why the hell? They're making Hollywood movies. You'd think, no, some of these people are not making tons of money. A lot of the crew on a film production like Rust are getting scale pay from the union, right? Like this
yeah.
is,
And
yeah.
apparently there's been 3 accidental gun discharges on the set prior to this happening, too.
Wow. That's wow.
Yeah,
And
like
like
this.
one accidental discharge is enough to warrant like a full breakdown, a full like um disassembly of the entire organization. But honestly, I think this speaks to America's gun culture. Like, oops, somebody got shot. Whoopsie doodle.
Yeah, well, this is it. Like, welcome to, we're making a Western movie because obviously it's a cow. The film is called Rust, and it's a cowboy Western themed film, I guess. I'm assuming, some like
Sure.
6 shooters and
Makes sense.
everything involved, and it sounds like it's all relatively inexperienced, like crew that were taking over. Like the union crews were kind of going, we're not going to really put up with this, and you're not treating us well. So they'd kind of go and outsource the work to local crews that were non-union and stuff. And it's like people were getting injured. Like this is, yeah, like welcome
Tragic.
to welcome to small businesses. This is, yeah,
Yeah, and unfortunately, the result being that someone is dead, and there are people who are injured, and Alec Baldwin now has to live with the fact that he has killed someone
yeah,
for the
he's
rest of his
killed a
life.
woman.
He's
Yeah.
never going to be the same again.
Yeah, no, this is the thing. Like these are preventable things. These are
Mhm.
accidents that could be prevented. But also, I think it, like you said, it also speaks to like, let's tone it down on the porn gun culture, right? Like Guns are not sexy. There should be
Well, the
no.
lackadaisical nature of how guns are treated in that country. That people are just walking around with guns all the time, and it's no big deal. But like, we're talking about a deadly weapon here. We're talking about something that can kill someone at any moment. Like, and cars
I
for
don't
that
know.
matter. Like,
Yeah, I'm a fan of guns.
yeah, guns are
I
cool and all.
I think this is straight up negligence caused by greed by Alec Baldwin and his other producers. I hope he's not directly responsible, but I feel if you're financing this thing and you're working with it hands on, you probably know what the fuck's going on, and the people have walked off prior to this happening because of safety issues and shit like that. So I think he's personally culpable and he should be held accountable. And either, I don't know, man, normal person would go to jail for something like that. So,
It's
you know,
difficult to assign blame because it's not like he
It's
was intending to kill. It's not like
no,
he
no,
had any
but
way of knowing
his
that he was
gross
going to kill.
negligence,
Yeah.
okay, knowingly he was grossly negligent.
I
He'd
don't
been
think
informed.
Alec Baldwin will be producing a film again anytime soon.
Maybe that might be the case.
And
You know,
like I was saying, unfortunately, because of the nature of the industry, this falls under workplace safety, and this is where, you know, the union professionals will demand that it is safety, right? Like, it's the union, it's the guys on the film site that are going, no, you must follow this 16-step check every time the revolver is pulled from, in a scene, every time you're
case,
pulling a
yeah.
weapon, right? Like, that's it's
Yep.
the union that
Like
are
I
going to
say,
make
like
these things.
basic firearm safety protocol. You must check yourself before handling a firearm to see if it's loaded or not, and
Yep.
always assume that it is, even if you have checked it.
Yup.
Yep.
So that was sad. That's awfully sad.
Yeah.
So, we've got a couple other things we could talk about real quick. And Matt, you put a little thing in things you probably never heard about.
Yeah, so this was one of those news, like I touched on it briefly. I got to get rid of this here. I touched on it briefly, but it turns out that 25 years ago, this guy just got his, yeah, I'll let you detail it. Mike, you can go along here.
I have no idea. I haven't even read this one yet.
So
Canada's taxing. You go ahead then. Go.
Gist of the story is there was rumors of this study that had been done in Vancouver about 25 years ago in relation to millionaires flooding the market and overinflating the housing prices. Well,
Vancouver.
Ian Young, reporter for the South China Morning Post out of Vancouver, sent in a Freedom of Information Act request about 5 years ago. And it was repeatedly delayed and delayed and delayed. And then finally it came out to say that yes, Revenue Canada had done a study of the housing purchases within the lower Vancouver mainland or lower British Columbia mainland, and it showed that of the highest cost housing, that the highest priced houses that were sold up above $900,000 or more, the average income declared was approximately $16,000.
That's conspicuous.
Yeah, nothing.
How do you do that?
Well,
maybe if it was the 1940s, but
this is it. It's basically, to me, it seems like it's just nothing but money laundering. This is how the Chinese billionaire class has been escaping China with billions of that country's economy.
Scroll down a little bit here. The study found rich new immigrants made more than 90% of high-value home purchases in which buyers were identifiably in the Metro Toronto municipalities of Burnaby and I can't say that word.
Coquitlam.
Thank you. But were declared only tiny global incomes, and that's where you said that. Yeah. $16,000.
So how on a $16,000 income are you purchasing a $900,000 home? without paying, it's bewildering. This was part
I
of the.
presume they're paying cash. This isn't mortgaged buying.
No, exactly. This is what stemmed. You guys may remember back in the early 2000s the talk about all of the Asian kids in the British Columbia Lower Mainland again that were inheriting $1 million homes. Like it was actually a social services concern because they had these 14 and 15-year-old kids that were basically shipped over to Vancouver to go to school and living in like a giant palatial house by themselves. Right? Like this is. And everybody was like, pay it no mind. Well, it turns out we knew this was happening. We knew it was inflating the housing prices. We knew it was pricing people out of their own neighborhoods. And we did nothing to curtail it, nothing to stop it. Like this is.
Were there that many people doing this?
Yeah.
Okay, so 90% of value homes. Okay, yeah, that's crazy. Damn.
Yeah, one buyer who bought a home for $2.8 million and declared a total global income of $174 Canadian.
Where's it say
they're
that?
not even
Highlight
trying.
it. Oh, right there.
They're not even trying.
Declared
At least to make your lies believable.
Yeah, and literally the more expensive the purchase, the less income they declared.
Wow.
So I'm going, I would not be surprised if at some point.
They're probably an Airbnb or whatever too while they're not using them.
Well, this is it. This is like 25 years ago was just as, the housing market was starting to creep up. And then this accelerated it, and now we have the corporate accelerationism applied to it. Because why not, right? Like there's money to be made, it's extractive by nature, and yeah, like the system is designed around keeping you in servitude and indebted to them forever. And the easiest way to do that, because once again, we know, gonna say that nasty word for Mike, UBI is coming. We know something's coming that resembles UBI. But if the government's giving you money, if the government's covering all your basic services because they have no other option, the only place they can extract capital from you is from the government funding for housing. Right? Like this is.
And just in my own defense, because people are probably wondering why I'm not a huge fan of UBI. It's only because I believe that it's a means to destroy our social safety nets that we fought for over the last 60 to 100 years. And the devil's going to be in the details. I think it's a great idea. I would be for it if I saw all the mother effing fine print.
That's exactly it. And that's what we need.
Easy to co-opt.
So.
Yep. Download everything. Download everything to the municipalities. You got to get your UBI from your local municipal office, right?
We're going to get screwed in that, I think. So that's my opinion.
So long as we won't get screwed in it if we start electing fucking leftists.
What a notion. Concept. Us in a position of power? No.
Well, it's never. Like I was Sean Lewis, I think is his name. He's a local London politician. He was talking about the seat appointments, and I was posting on his wall. I'm like, why don't we take this seat and make it an appointed position, but a continually appointed position that represents, the underclass in society. Elect somebody that's appointed from having either experienced or is currently experiencing under housing or poverty, or maybe even just a tenant.
I don't know what you're talking about.
We have currently 2 open seats on London City Council because one retired and the other one has gone on to another position.
Yeah, he's working for like an NGO or something like that, I think now, or a commission or something.
So there's a lot of chaos in terms of how or if we are going to fill these positions, because the next election is about exactly 1 year away. So the question is, do we fill it with the first place runner-up, or do we have another election, or do we just leave it empty, or what? We're getting away for at least a year now on 1 empty seat, but 2 empty seats is it risks not having quorum at certain functions.
Interesting.
It's anybody's guess how that's going to go.
Well, and that's, like that's why I'm saying like democracy needs to be more representative. Why is we need tenants in office, right? Like you're a renter, you need to get we need a renter that's like, hey, yeah, I need rent control should be a concern because I don't have income properties, right?
Somebody who doesn't have the money to pay for a successful campaign perhaps should be on city council.
Yes. Yes.
They should be putting limits on how much these people can spend on campaigns.
Well,
anyway.
there are limits. It's just that the limits aren't meaningfully equalizing for those who don't have means.
This is why we need the black box of democracy.
Yeah.
You become a candidate, you submit your name, and you get to stand in a black box that is mic'd up, and you get to say what your plans are, and then you leave the black box and a number identifies you. That's it.
See, even when I
vote
ran
for the number.
When I ran for student council president at Western, they gave us a budget. They gave us a budget, and we could only get our printing done at this place on campus.
Yep, that's a sensible way to do it.
There were lots of little rules and regulations, and I think you were given a 3-strike, and they were varying depending on how severe stuff was. They let you away with little teeny things once in a while, but it's definitely brought up during the talks and the debates and stuff like that. So
in Japan, it works kind of like this to a degree, where every candidate is afforded a certain amount of airtime on Japanese television that they can say whatever they are going to say, and so this definitely equalizes the access for people of different social classes to the levers of power.
Interesting.
But just try and introduce that in a capital-driven Western nation like the United States or Canada ain't gonna work. They'll never go for it.
The last thing we can probably end on here is I'm just looking through the stuff. Upcoming events. Okay. So yeah, we were talking, and we used to talk about upcoming events that were going to happen in our general listening area, and
then things stopped happening.
Yeah, and then things stopped happening. What's that?
I said the one event I had listed has already happened. It was today.
Oh, so in the future, folks, we will try to keep you abreast to things that we know that are coming up in the future. So be aware that this last part of the show will always be that.
Yeah, we'll be discussing some organizing and things we can be doing, and gatherings and functions and online events and
praxis.
And if things aren't happening, we'll make them happen. Gosh darn it.
We're going to build that damn big tent, and it's going to be bigger than Trump's tent. It's going to be the biggest tent of all the tents.
Biggest tent. We got the best, the finest.
It's going to be
huge.
Okay, well, thank you very much, guys. And
that note,
I guess we are out of here. Hey, Mike, you want to take us away?
Yeah. Hey, thanks for watching another sedition of the Indignants, and we'll be back this time, or we'll be back 8 o'clock next Monday. No idea what we're going to talk about, but it'll be whatever happened during the week, and hopefully Bailey will be with us. So once again, thanks for joining us, and peace.